What's up, guys? Flash Banks back here for another week of college basketball. We got less than 4 weeks until Selection Sunday, around 2 weeks until conference tournament play starts with some of these mid majors, and then 3 weeks until really those power conferences start their conference tournaments. So not a lot of time left here in the regular season. We're gonna go through some teams that were looking good last week, some teams that weren't, and then some of the weekday games to watch out for this week, especially for seeding purposes, races for that number one overall seed in your conference tournament as well, which becomes very important, giving you the easiest path. So starting up first, we got Wisconsin, who had a huge week. They ended up beating Illinois on the road in overtime to catch a big win. Then they ended up kind of dominating from wire to wire against Michigan State, which was really impressive to see. Nick Boyd has come on to be an absolutely awesome player. He is so much fun to watch at Wisco. He just is just a straight bucket getter. He gets buckets. He was good when he played at San Diego State as well. He was really fun to watch there. Very good, even back in the day when he played at FAU too. And then you got Blackwell too for that 1-2 punch. Blackwell has been playing really well as of late. Had a really good game against Michigan State too. And then next up this week, they got a big game at Ohio State and versus Iowa, which will definitely be two games to watch out for Wisconsin. They're starting to become kind of must watch as a team. Definitely a team that can be a sleeper. They got wins over now Michigan, Illinois, and Michigan State. So one of the teams with some of the better wins in the country. And then next we got Miami. They ended up beating UNC last Tuesday. Really led from wire to wire in that game. Kind of wouldn't say dominated, but leading wire to wire against a good UNC team before that Caleb Wilson injury. We'll touch on in a second here. Really impressive from them. And then they had an absolutely ferocious last-minute comeback at NC State, which I don't know how they won that game, pulled out of their ass, but they did win it, which really kind of secures them into the field, I think, for the selection committee and kind of takes them off the bubble, at least for now. They do have a big-time game against Virginia Tech and Virginia this week to watch out for, so those will be two high-level games. Virginia Tech kind of sitting on the wrong side of the bubble right now, so that's a big game for them. Then we'll highlight Florida once again. They just continue to look awesome. I didn't think they were going to be particularly, maybe I just thought they kind of were due for kind of a down spot this week, whether that was at UGA or versus Kentucky, but they kind of dominated both those games. Kentucky made a little run to keep it close in the second half, but it was really always going to be Florida. And they continue to look really good and look easily right now, at least like the best team in the SEC. This week they got a kind of a weak week. They play at South Carolina and against Ole Miss, which should be two easy wins for them. But, in college basketball, you can never really take a night off. So they'll be interesting to see in the coming weeks, at least. It looks like they're going to win the SEC here, starting to build up on that lead. Then we got Purdue. They had a really good week. They've been struggling a little bit. They found a win at Nebraska. They almost blew that game, but they ended up coming through and winning on the road, which is something that's never easy to do in college basketball. And then they really dominated against. And again on Saturday, in a game I thought would definitely be a lot closer. Iowa did not really come to play. And then they play Michigan and IU this week, which should be interesting. You have Michigan at home, which should be a pretty good game there on Tuesday. Going to be pretty exciting there, especially for the Big Ten race. To gain any ground on Michigan, Purdue really needs to grab a win here. And they get IU on Friday, so that would be big, just a little revenge spot for them there after falling to the Hoosiers on the road earlier in the season. And the last team here we'll just touch on is Texas Tech. That win at Arizona was huge for them. Kind of continues to keep them in the Big 12 race, which is just so tight at the top with how good those 6 teams are, especially BYU maybe fallen off a little bit from the pack, but still is a very good team. Just Big 12 is tough to play night in, night out. They also dominated Colorado. And then also Texas Tech with a little bit of an easier week playing at Arizona State and versus Kansas State. And then just kind of some of the teams that had a little bit of a rough week this week, starting with Clemson. They lose to Virginia Tech in a tough one at home. Then they get to go on the road to play at Duke. Kind of struggled to shoot in that game, held to a really low season low for them in points, but it's never really hard it's always really hard to win in Cameron, so can't really fault them there. But this week they can't trip up as they have games at Wake and against Florida State, which they want to keep those wins in so they can kind of stay in that ACC race to have that double bye. We have NC State, who lost at Louisville. Didn't really just lose. They got obliterated, allowing 118 points, which is just absolutely insane. And then, as I touched on before, with Miami, they had just an absolute all-time collapse at home in that final minute, up 6, allowing a 7-0 run to lose by 1. Just absolutely crazy. And then kind of just looking at UNC, they lost to Miami this week. They were kind of due for regression after that big win against Duke. It was been kind of a rough spot for them to then go on the road, play at Miami, who really needed a big-time win like this. And then coming out of that game, the news of Caleb Wilson fracturing his left hand just kind of sucks for them and sucks overall as a college basketball fan to see a player like that get hurt and be sidelined for who knows how long. Supposedly he's supposed to come back. I'm hoping that he does because I think he's awesome to watch. He's a great player, and it'd be really cool to at least see him be able to show off his talent in March. They play at NC State this week without him, so that's going to be a big time game. As we talked about, NC State just above them. They got to be able to come out on top in that game. NC State's kind of really floating with the bubble right now. And they play at Syracuse. And then we move on to Iowa. They took a loss at Maryland this week, which is really pretty bad loss for them. Maryland's been pretty atrocious in the Big Ten, and then kind of really just got dominated against Purdue at home. It's just never really good to see. They continue to kind of struggle just a bit when they take that jump up in competition, which is just something to note right now. I don't think it's huge concern. It's just something to keep an eye out. They have a big week as they play Nebraska at home and at Wisconsin later this week. So those are 2 kind of big-time matchups to see. Hopefully they can try to rebound here with a win over one of these 2 teams. And then last up here, we got George Mason. They kind of shot themselves in the foot here and ruined really any chance of an at-large bid for themselves, losing at Richmond and at George Washington, which really sucks to see, as the A-10 most likely will be a 1-bid league unless someone can steal it from St. Louis. VCU maybe can get a second at-large bid, but they gotta have a lot of help on their side to be able to do that as well. Arizona could have also been up here, but I just think they're just an awesome, they've been playing phenomenal basketball as of late. They just happen to lose 2 tough games. That's how the Big 12 is, and I don't think those games really hurt them overall in the long run compared to a lot of these teams. Some of these L's might hurt them a little bit more. So that's kind of my reasoning there. But as we look ahead to this week, we got some awesome games coming up, starting off with Houston at Iowa State on Monday. This is basically right now probably a game that will be for a 1 seed. Both these teams have been flirting back and forth between the 1 and 2 line. Whoever wins this game, I think, will end up being the 1 seed comes for that Saturday or Sunday, whenever the committee comes out with their top 16. This game will have a direct impact on that. And it's also just going to be a high-level basketball game. It's going to be a pretty fun watch all around. So very excited for that game tonight. And then as we look ahead, we got 2 kind of key mid-major games. We got Morgan State versus NC Central at 7 p.m. We only got 2 weeks left in the MEAC. This game's for first place, so a lot riding on this game here tonight. A great game between these 2 teams. And then also at 7 p.m., we get South Alabama at Marshall. This is a big game in what has been an absolutely wild Sunbelt. Really no rhyme or reason to how teams are. I'll show you real quick. just the conference standings in the Sunbelt and how wild it actually is. South Alabama is in first at 9-4, tied with App State, who's 10-5. Then you got Troy, who's 9-5, half a game back. Marshall 8-5, a game back. Texas State 9-6, as well. Then you got Coastal Carolina 8-6, Arkansas State, Georgia Southern 7-7 as well. So the Sun Belt has been pretty absolutely wild. Really, over these next couple of weeks, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how it all plays out in the Sun Belt and how the seeding will be for the conference tournament, because it really is all over the place. And honestly, any of these teams can really win that conference tournament. So it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks and an interesting conference tournament to watch for. So watch out for the Sun Belt. Then looking at Tuesday has just a whole slate of games, so it was really hard to actually pick from some of these. So I just picked 8 that I'm going to watch, and I think will be some great games to watch. Yeah, Michigan at Purdue at 6:30. Big game for the Big Ten race for Purdue to try to catch Michigan, as well as, seeding when it comes to March. This will also be a pivotal game for both these teams. You got UNC at NC State, as I touched about. NC State really on the hot seat in the bubble. Need to pick up a win like this against UNC to really help them out. Even if UNC is missing Caleb Wilson, it's all the more reason for them to be able to try to strike and win this game now. Then we get TCU at UCF, another game that's going to have big-time bubble implications. UCF, I think, is probably on the right side of the bubble. TCU also maybe on the right side, kind of leaning towards, last 4 in territory, or, the first 4 that are kind of safe from that playing game. So both these teams need a win here, can really help their resumes. Then we got Louisville at SMU, which should be a good game as well for seeding for the conference tournament in the ACC race. SMU also could hopefully pick up a big win here, even though Boopy Miller, I believe, is still injured. Last I checked, I don't know when he'll be back exactly, but a win here for SMU could go a long way for their resume. Talked about Virginia Tech at Miami. Virginia Tech just needs to win this game. If they lose this game, they might be done. This is just a huge game for them to get back towards the right side of the bubble, make their way back towards that way. Same thing here with Wisconsin and Ohio State. Ohio State lost to Virginia on Saturday. Win there probably would have helped them out a decent amount. And this is a game that they really need to win. They can't drop a home game here. You gotta win your home games to make the tournament. Those are the most important ones. And then just, stack a couple road wins as well. Then you get Nebraska at Iowa. Should be a great game as well. Can Iowa really compete when they take that next step up in competition? They haven't shown it too much this year, so here's another chance for them to really try to show that off. And then at 9 p.m., we get Georgia at Kentucky. Georgia, another team with big-time bubble implications. They've been really struggling in the SEC. They're 5-7 right now in the SEC, and the SEC's kind of had more so of a down year, at least compared to last year. They definitely had a down year, but it's hard to make the tournament when you're below 500 in your conference. So they got to start winning some of these games, or else they won't find themselves to be playing in the NCAA tournament. And then some of the mid-major games to watch out for: Miami, Ohio at UMass. I just think that game has some potential upset there. I think UMass is playing pretty solid in the MAC. They have beaten some power conference teams, so I think it definitely is a big game for them, and a big game for Miami, Ohio here, to see if they can keep this undefeated streak going. And then at 7 p.m., we also get St. Louis at Rhode Island. Just watching St. Louis and the Billikens play, they are a fun team to watch. So anytime they're playing, I'm most likely going to be watching them play. You just got to get eyes on them and see how dominant they are and have been this season, because they are fun to watch. And then we get Southeast Missouri, SEMO versus UT Martin. UT Martin's a team I've been liking to watch this year, so this is time to get eyes on them, at least here. This game is for first in the Ohio Valley, so a lot of implications on the line here. 2 weeks left in their regular season too, so this will go a long way to see who wins the regular season in the Ohio Valley. And then we get Grand Canyon at San Diego State, which I think it's a good Mountain West game. Always been a big advocate of the Mountain West. It's having a little bit of a down year, not as good as the last couple of years in the Mountain West, but I just think it's impressive Grand Canyon moving over there and immediately being able to go 9-5 in their first year in the Mountain West. And this is a game to see if they can kind of compete with the top of the Mountain West, especially on the road where it's a lot harder to win in college basketball, as I've been saying, and I'll continue to say. Then on Wednesday, we get Arkansas at Alabama. This is going to be a big time matchup to kind of see who can get the double bye in the SEC, especially for seeding there. So going to be a must-watch game. Also, I think the Darius Acuff versus LeBaron Philon should be really fun to watch as well. Should be a good matchup in Tuscaloosa. And then we get BYU at Arizona. BYU's kind of been struggling as of late. They even struggled, barely won at home in OT against Colorado. They need to bounce back, and I don't know if it comes here. It doesn't get easier in the Big 12. They need to bounce back in their play at Arizona, who's coming off their first 2 losses of the season, both in a row. Going to be a tough one for them to win, but I think this is going to be another high-level game. Going to be a fun watch here, as I already played, and BYU almost had to come back against Arizona at home. Couldn't finish it off. Should be another great game between these two. Then we got Kansas at Oklahoma State. This is really Oklahoma State's last chance. They have to win this game to really stay in contention of making the tournament. They've pretty much fallen out of everyone's eyes. I still think they're a pretty solid team. The metrics and some of the other analytics might not back it as much, but when the eye test, just watching them, they are solid. It's just they haven't been able to win these closer games, and they need to win this to have really any chance at making the tournament. And then we get Vanderbilt at Missouri. It should be a good game as well. Missouri's been pretty dominant at home this year. And then Vandy they just won against A&M, but they are still fighting for that kind of double bye in the SEC. So this is a big game for that double bye as well. And then we get Illinois at USC in the nightcap at 10 p.m. USC has been floating back and forth through the bubble. Arenas is finally healthy. Gilbert's son, Elijah, he's been playing really well in the games he's been healthy in now. So I think this should be a fun watch between these two teams in the late night. And USC could really use a big win here as well. And then the mid-majors to watch out for on Wednesday night. We get Furman playing at home against ETSU, East Tennessee State. This is a big game in the Southern Conference. ETSU's in first. Furman's right now in third, about 2 games back. So a win here could go a long way to try to gain some ground on them with 2 weeks left here. And then at 7 p.m. we get Dayton at George Mason. Kind of seeing if George Mason can get a bounce back win here and against the Dayton team that hasn't really lived up to expectations this year. At least this is what I thought they would be. And then finally 9 p.m. we get Murray State at Illinois State. Nothing too crazy here, just really seeing purposes in the Missouri Valley. The Missouri Valley, in my opinion, has been one of the more fun conferences to watch this year. It's been some great basketball, and I just think both these teams have been playing some pretty good basketball this year, so it should be a good game between these two teams. And then there wasn't really too many power conference games that I was interested in on Thursday, so we're going right back to the mid-major games. I'm very much a big mid-major advocate with a lot of these games, a lot of these teams. They're fun to watch, and I think they're just underappreciated until March. When they do win these games, that's when they'll be appreciated. I think looking at the body work, like appreciating these teams for what they are during the season is always a lot of fun, especially to watch these games. So starting off at 6 p.m., we get Vermont at UMBC. This should be a really interesting game. Vermont's kind of dominated the American East, really, as of late. UMBC has been playing pretty good basketball this year. They're third in the American East, Vermont's second. So it's a big game when it comes towards seeding for the American East tournament, which plays home games. So definitely important. It's not neutral. So being able to get that higher seed is definitely more important. With NJIT's currently in first. If one of these teams with a win here can maybe catch NJIT and get that number 1 overall seed and win the regular season in the American East, this game can go a long way in doing that. And then next up, 8 p.m., we get South Alabama versus Texas State. Said it before. The Sunbelt has just been the wacky Wild West in that conference. So South Alabama's on here again. They got another big game against Texas State. So this game is going to go a long way into see what possible array of seeding is going to happen in that Sunbelt, because you can't even guess what it's going to be like, because it's just absolutely just a shit show in there. This game could be one of the ones that goes a long way in deciding how the seedings will end up being. And then finally at 8 p.m., get an interesting game between Cal Baptist and Utah Valley. They're playing for first in the Western Athletic Conference. Utah Valley was actually a really fun team to watch last year. They were really good, and haven't got as much eyes on them this year. Watched maybe a couple games here or there, but they've once again backed it up, been really good this season. They're second right now, trailing Cal Baptist by a game, so a win here, they could leapfrog themselves back into first place, which would be very big for them. And then Friday, the main kind of game I'll highlight is Indiana at Purdue. Indiana could use a big win here. Still 2-8 in quad one games, so not a great record when they take that step up in competition. But one of those wins is against Purdue, so this should be a good game. Purdue looking to get a bounce back revenge win here against the Hoosiers, but should be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday, because Indiana does not play this week. They play on Sunday against Illinois, then they get Purdue Friday. Meanwhile, Purdue, just coming off that Iowa game, they play against Michigan at home, and then they get the Hoosiers. So kind of seeing how that Michigan game ends up going for Purdue will really kind of help determine this game, because teams that play Michigan the game after, they still seem pretty worn down from playing the Wolverines. That's just how good Michigan is. You feel the after effect of playing them. But this is a big game for the Hoosiers, so they could really use another quad one win to really boost to their resume. And then just the mid-major games that I'll be watching on Friday night, which should be good. We get VCU at St. Louis. We get the two best teams in the A-10 playing on Friday night at 7 p.m. St. Louis took the first game at VCU, seeing if VCU can get some revenge here. A win here for VCU too could help their chances a lot at somehow getting an at-large bid if it comes to that, but it also could hurt the A-10 overall and hurting St. Louis's resume. You only get, reduce your league to maybe a one-bid league, so not really sure if you're the A-10 commissioner you're rooting for here, but regardless, I think it's going to be a very good game. High intensity game in St. Louis. It's going to be bumping there, I think. And then also we get Siena at Merrimack. Going to be interesting. Siena's third in the MAC, not the MAC. We get the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, different than MACtion. So we got two MACs in college basketball actually. But you get Siena, who's in third, versus Merrimack, who's in first. So big time game here. Merrimack's been playing some really good ball. Their defense has been pretty stifling for teams in the MAC. So if you haven't seen Merrimack play this year, this is your chance. Not too many games on a Friday, and you get to see them play a pretty good mid-major here in Siena as well. But that's pretty much it for me on my recap from kind of what I saw this week. What's exciting to watch for these weekday games, as we get another awesome slate of college basketball for this week. Leading into the weekend, we'll see if I end up getting another one of these videos out before the Saturday, Sunday slate, just to see what games to watch. If not, I'll probably post something anyways on Instagram, just of the games I'll be watching like I did last week. But regardless, we'll see kind of how it is. I'm hoping to get to that Duke-Michigan game. I'll be in DC on Saturday, so that should be a really fun game to be at. I've seen two of the top teams in the NCAA going head-to-head there. But yeah, it's pretty much it all from me. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.